Recorded live from Random Secret Studios across the Philadelphia region and the Delaware Valley.
I'm the capo. He's the prez.
And this is Sons of Ben, the pod. Adam, Devin, this is episode number, you're going to like this, Adam, number Kevin Durant.
You know his number Cole Hamels, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, right now, because it's a Union podcast, not a Phillies podcast, it's Kevin Durant's
It's a Kevin
number.
Durant, that's fair. That's
fair.
Number
35, and before we get started, I want to introduce, and I always say I'm excited, but this is actually true. I want to introduce our guest. While trying to come up with an introduction for our guest, I did a lot of research. And the best way I could sum up our guest is reading a definition. This definition is: a Renaissance man is a man who is skilled at all tasks he attempts and has a wide-ranging knowledge in many fields. Top Renaissance man characteristics include being highly educated, a gentleman, cultured in the arts, and charismatic. On top of this, he must do all these things effortlessly. Ladies and gentlemen, our special guest today is one of the owners of your Philadelphia Union, founder of the YSC Academy, 4 Soccer Ventures, and the Soccer Collective, as well as a photography ambassador for 1% for the Planet. Ladies and gents, Mr. Richie Graham.
That's quite the introduction there. Thank you. I wish I could live up to a quarter of that, but thank you, guys.
Well, no, and my only question is, after reading that introduction, I'm like, I have to ask, are you Batman?
No,
that's
sir.
a fair
No,
question,
sir.
honestly.
Well, welcome to the pod, Richie. We are so happy to finally meet, even though it's virtually, and just to get to talk to you about your whole, not just your body of work, but your involvement with the union and the academy. And before we get into that, let me go real quick. Ladies and gents, the beer of the pod. We've got Yards, 2SP, and the Larimer. Richie, the background of that is all 3 of those breweries are friends of the Sons of Ben and the pod. And normally, before COVID, we'd have the guests into our studio and we'd all have a beer from that brewery. So you are another guest that we owe beers to. So once this is over with, we're going to have to sit down and have a beer.
Well, when we get into the stadium, I'll hunt you guys down and I'll look for one for sure. Yeah.
No problem.
We will not be that hard to find.
Yeah, we're pretty loud. So let's get to know you. 2011, you joined the ownership group and planted the seeds of the academy. So this is a real open-ended question. Go wherever you want with it. But can you kind of give us an overview of the early days of the union and your involvement?
Yeah, no, I actually was pretty in deep on a project with FC Barcelona, actually looking at bringing a academy to the United States for FC Barcelona. I had spent a lot of time, from probably 2008 on, traveling through Europe, looking at different development and academy opportunities, and was in discussions with Nike and SCB Escola, which is at that time was a part of FC Barcelona's setup. And around that time, I think it was Nick Sikevich that came knocking on the door and saying, "Hey, we're MLS is coming to Philadelphia," and I immediately recognized the value of sort of connecting a youth platform with the local city in a meaningful way. And so not a lot of people know that, but we were really in the 11th hour of sort of trying to bring a footprint for FC Barcelona into the region. So I was looking at property and facilities and opportunities to do that. But in the end, I would so excited that it was Philadelphia Union, because for me, a lot about what we're doing is about pushing American soccer forward and seeing the game in this country grow. And we have so much talent in Philly that I was just really, really excited. When they came along, I said, "Hey, look, I'm not as interested in necessarily owning being a minority investor in a pro, soccer team, but I am very interested in the development side." And so from the very beginning, structured my relationship with Jay Sugarman, where effectively I would fund the academy for equity, and that was the beginning of a relationship. And that's those early years were about putting some of the foundational pieces in place, trying to do the best that we could. Certainly, as the sporting directors came in, that really helped professionalize and stabilize the vision a lot more. But those early days were exciting. But we really were there was so much work to do, building things from the very, very ground up.
Well, Adam's a native of Wayne, and I think he wants his tennis and swim club back.
No, you can. That place was getting really bad towards the end, so I'm actually really happy what that was recycled into. But no, as a proud Wayne resident, it's really cool to see the academy there. I brag about it all the time, which is literally about 2 blocks from my house. So it's like,
Cool.
It's really awesome to see what that's developed into, and now to see the type of products coming out of that academy. It's when you listen to broadcasting, listen to other MLS, commentators and talking heads talk about the MLS, the Union's Academy with literally the top tier of MLS's academies now. It's not even like it's kind of close to FC Dallas or it's kind of on par with like Real Salt Lake. It's like, no, it's literally on that tier producing. And what we're looking at now is subsequently top level talent. So, and it's crazy to think that all of these gems are from the Del Val, the fact that we can find all of these quality talent within our own backyard.
Yeah, no, I mean it's we have an incredible home territory, if you will, when you think about where we're located, and a lot of times you talk to folks around and you'd say, hey, look at the population density that we have in our area and the talent. It's really quite exceptional. So. I always was a believer that there wasn't something special in the water over in Europe. If you take a look at those learning environments, you take a look at the kids, there's no reason in my mind that we couldn't replicate in our own way. You can't copy exactly what's happening in Germany or in France and bring that over here exactly, but you can take ideas and pieces from these different models that are happening in other parts of the world with the game, and then Americanize that and create a system here where you give kids the opportunity to maximize their potential. And at the end of the day, that's sort of been the center of the bullseye for us, is like try to create an environment where you give the kids the opportunity to maximize their potential. And that's why we sort of pulled in the education piece with YSC Academy, because in our culture, you can't just solve elite youth development without thinking about the education piece. They really come hand in hand in our culture, and they're both equally important. And so the school was a natural extension and a critical extension for us in terms of being able to recruit players, but also create an environment where we can help those kids develop. Because if you want to try to produce world-class players, you can't just do that from 4 o'clock to 6 p.m. 5 days a week with a game on Saturday. You need to immerse them into a culture and into an environment, and the school really allows for that. So it's been a really fun project to watch grow. I still feel like we're only in the very beginning phases of it. So certainly not content with where we are, and think we can go a lot further. We need to sort of really get commitment all the way through from everyone that's involved to sort of really maximize the potential of this product. But I think we're moving definitely in a good direction, and you see the results of that. You see some kids starting to come through.
Yeah, and I've said this on the pod a number of times, but when I first became president of Sons of Ben, I was invited to the academy to tour the school and the facilities, and I was blown away and impressed because I didn't have the right idea in my head what the academy was. I really thought it was like, oh, this is a charter school for some rich kids that have some soccer ability. And then when I walked in and I saw the flags, and I was like, oh, wait, what are all these? And they're like, oh, these are the nation countries where our students are from, and found out about the development and how even some of these kids that they knew they were good enough to play in the academy, but maybe pro soccer wasn't in their future, but they were going to get a great education, as well as like steps on how to be a good human being throughout life. So I was blown away, and we had Rusty Aronson on the pod, and he talked about what a great experience it was for Brendan, how they were just dipping their toe in the water slowly, and then had Paxton and basically threw him in the deep end, because they were so impressed with the academy, both on the field and off the field in the school. So yeah, I was just wondering if you could give our kind of give our listeners an idea of like who the students are, because I had a complete misconception of where you're getting the students and their backgrounds.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And a lot of credit goes towards our head of school and all her staff, Dr. Nuha Ahmed Ali. She's an amazing educator, and every kid that comes through that door, she loves, and she really helps nurture them and find sort of their path for their own individual pathways. So I think she's been phenomenal, and her staff has been phenomenal. So yeah, a little bit on the kids. We have let's step back and say what's cool about soccer. Soccer is so culturally and ethnically diverse. It is the global game, and that is one of the most beautiful things about the sport. And I'm blessed that I get to see that diversity and that sort of connection and that bond every day. Seeing those kids, at YSC, and if you go to any little soccer team, it's not just the Philadelphia Union Youth, but any across the Philadelphia region, you see that sort of ethnic diversity that's represented in the game, and you see kids playing together and working together, and frankly setting an example of the way it should be for all us grown-ups in the real world. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about soccer. And so YSC and the Philadelphia Union's youth programs are just sort of a reflection of that diversity. And so I think it's something over half of the kids at the school would define themselves as ethnically diverse. Over 94% are on some form of scholarship. So this isn't just hey, if you can pay for it, you get this opportunity. And the many of the success stories of the schools, of course, there's the Brendan Aronsons and the Mark McKenzies, and Matt Rials and and Fontana and the whole gang that you see playing for the first team. But there are many other stories that are really equally exciting, and it's the kid that maybe immigrated from West Africa that moved to Philadelphia, who was a talented soccer player who got an opportunity to get an education, and now is getting a full ride to a Division I program, and is the first person in their family to get an education. So when people ask me, like, how do you measure success, it isn't just about sort of the kids that end up playing for our first team. It's also some of those incredible success stories of the kids that are using soccer as a tool to learn about themselves and each other, but also get a great education. And I think that's something the Philadelphia Union should feel very, very proud about. I know we feel proud about that, and it's I've said it's kind of like a Juilliard for soccer. The kids that come into this environment are highly, highly motivated, and they all want to be pro, and they're pushing each other every day. And there's a real cultural element there, and you probably felt it when you walk through, where there's a brotherhood. It's a really nurturing, cool environment where they help each other out. And I love to see that. After Matt Rial scores the other night, who's the first guy in his arms? It's Fontana, because those bonds that are formed, day in and day out, really are very special to see. And I think they also help our performance. Down the road, they manifest because these guys know each other and they trust each other, and that's a big part of the what happens on the soccer field as well. So yeah, it's a very cool environment. I would say that from an educational standpoint, it's real. We take that education piece very seriously. Our kids are getting into top-level colleges and universities. We've had some tremendous success on that front that we can point to. So we take the soccer piece just as seriously as we take the educational piece, and blend those together. And we kind of say to kids, hey, look, if you're going to work hard on the field every single day in training and try to hope to become a pro, we need you to have that same attitude and same approach in the classroom. And it's developing a mindset. And that's back to that idea of sort of, if you want to produce world-class players, you need a world-class environment. And a world-class environment can't just be what's happening on the soccer pitch from, again, 4 o'clock to 6 p.m. during practice. It needs to be the whole environment, and that includes the way you approach your education, the way everything. And for those that don't, quote unquote, make it as pros, they've gotten so much out of that experience. And I always say to the boys, they're in a minority in that there are not many kids their age that are out there every day going after the thing that they love with full commitment. And as you guys know, commitment is not an easy road. There's ups and downs that come along with commitments. There's injuries, there's failures, there's all that stuff. And those kids are taking all those lessons that they're learning. And then, later in life, whether they're a pro soccer player or not, we're confident that it's going to serve them very, very well. So we're really excited about what's happening there. It's, a portion of our program that has been critical, and I hope will continue to be supported as we think through this academy concept. But yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, and the other aspect that I was impressed with was the living aspect, where I see the kitchen and there were charts on the refrigerator for the guys to look at for nutrition, knowing like what their workout was, what they should be eating. Where, as someone that's coached high school athletes before for about 15 years, these kids don't put anything good in their body.
Yeah.
But the kids at the academy, those guys really took an interest on nutrition on that part. So it wasn't just, the playing aspect, wasn't just the education, but there was this learning how to live aspect to it that I was just completely impressed with. You mentioned it earlier. Wanted to get into it before we got too much. You oversaw both the Ernie and the Ernst searches and recruitment and romances. Can you give us just a insight into each search and the difference between each guy? I mean, as Sons of Ben members and fans, we've got two different perspectives of both Ernie and Ernst. And just wanted to get an idea like why you thought Ernie was the right man and Ernst was the right man at those particular times in the union's evolution.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they definitely share common DNA. Let's put it that way. They're big believers in what I would call a player development model. As you guys know, there's clubs out in the world that can buy the big stars. There's clubs that can buy the big stars and build. And it's always a blend of sort of like how much do you manufacture on your own versus how much do you buy on the outside. And in both cases, Ernie and Ernst are big believers in the power of and sustainability, frankly, of the build model. I first met Ernie when I was touring in Holland. I was looking at a couple clubs. Feyenoord and AZ was one of those clubs, and was really impressed with him. And honestly, when we began the search for a sporting director, and it was decided like, okay, yeah, we want to have someone that can oversee the technical side, who really can provide that vision in terms of not only the players that you are trying to develop, but the methodology and the players that you want to go scout. So Ernie, I reached out and I'll never forget the conversation when he had, initiated, he basically said, yeah, that'd be something he'd be interested in learning more about. He came in and talked with Jay, and I think he really impressed Jay. What you love about Ernie is that, he understands the American, even though he grew up in Holland and he played in Holland, he understands the American culture, he understands the American player. He's deeply committed to development, and he really put in a lot of the foundational elements around sort of even our competitive strategy, which is really three key pillars. And you'll hear Jim refer to our competitive strategy quite often, and it was something Ernie was very involved in sort of architecting. And that was sort of pillar one, is that we want to be a club that builds. We look to player development as a key critical tool. The second pillar is we want to be a club that has a specific methodology, so that whether you start in the youngest ages of the academy all the way through the first team, you're trained in a system. And so for Americans, I've always like, imagine if Bill Belichick at the, and probably the wrong name to use in Philly, but imagine if that guy could, start working with kids on his system at like 9 and 10 years old. By the time they're good enough and they arrive maybe as a pro, wow, do they really understand it? And we know that Barcelona did this very well, and there's many clubs around the world that have a methodology approach. Of course, Leipzig, Red Bull, there's many examples. So pillar one is about player development, pillar two about methodology, and pillar three is about innovation and how do you sort of do things maybe in a different way. And that foundation was really set by Ernie and enabled sort of Ernst to come in and add to it. Their methodology wasn't necessarily the same of how they wanted the game to be played, but Ernst has been able to come in, and I personally feel he's the strongest sporting director in MLS right now. I think he really has a very clear vision of what he wants to see from on the field in terms of methodology, and And that really, I've learned a lot with that. I mean, that's made if you think of the academy as a manufacturing plant, you're trying to manufacture a product, right? And the thing I've learned along this path here is that the tighter you have a definition of what the product is to look like, the higher probability that your manufacturing plant can produce exactly that product. So if you say, I want to produce some good soccer players, then that means a lot of things to different people. But if you say, I want to produce players that do X, Y, and Z, that fit in this methodology in this specific way, then it really informs what you do every single day in the academy. And it also informs what you look for when you're scouting. And I think with Ernie's foundation, Ernst is able to come in and really begin to tighten down the definition of what does a Philadelphia Union player look like? What's the profile specifically that we want for our methodology? How do we manufacture that in the academy? And how do we go scout for that? And you're always going to have misses potentially as you're developing or scouting, but it does increase the probability that you get you get more hits in terms of players that fit and work. And I think we're seeing Ernst build off of Ernie's success. They're different personalities for sure, but they share many qualities. And I first met Ernst, by the way, back in when he was at Hoffenheim. I went and visited.
Oh, wow.
And so I've known him for many years and saw what he did there. Visited Hoffenheim and was got Jimmy over to Hoffenheim, Zach Pfeffer at some points over to Hoffenheim. But saw what they did, and they were really progressive and really incredible in terms of sort of their approach to the game. Then saw him make the move to Red Bull, saw what they were doing at Red Bull. So always stayed in touch with Ernst. And when Ernie, made the call to sort of join the national team, which I was really, bummed to see him go at one level, but excited for him on another level, because I think, I knew that he would be a great resource for American soccer, and I knew it was a fantastic opportunity for him. So it was one of those things where, it was a departure on good terms. But one of the first people I called actually was, Ernst Tanner. And Jay Sugarman and I sat down and we said, what are the criteria that are important for us? And we defined, we wanted someone that has experience in methodology, really sort of a specific methodology. We wanted someone that had a track record in identifying, developing talent. We wanted someone that had an understanding of the European transfer market. Those were, elements that were really important. And so, when I called Ernst and I said, hey, by the way, we're looking for a sporting director, and these are the criteria, and I sent it over to him. He emailed me back. He said, that's my profile. And I go, I know it is. It's I've known you for a long time, and we're so, then I think he just happened to be at a point in his life where the idea of coming over to the United States was not so crazy. Like 10 years ago, a lot of Europeans, I think, looked over here and said, but now with the investment MLS has made into the game and buying good players and into player development, we're able to attract more folks, and people want to be a part of it. And I think, Ernst saw the opportunity and sees the opportunity that we have in the United States, which I personally feel is massive. I think we're one of the last frontiers really for the global game. So the talent pool that we have here, the population, the infrastructure, you name it, we're sitting on a gold mine of talent. And I was really, you see it with MLS is now doubling down with MLS Next, really recognizing like this is our future. It's very exciting times.
And as a fan base, we've said in the past that Ernie Stewart was the sporting director we needed at that time to get the ship back on, or get the train back on the tracks, and move it, to give it the discipline that it was lacking, and some of the structure between, the former Bethlehem Steel, the academy. And then with Ernst Tanner, he's the sporting director that, as Philadelphia fans, we thought we deserve. I mean, we love that guy in so many different ways. From the first time he came on board, I always mess up his quote, but he was hammered immediately, like, oh, we always hear about development and the academy, so how's that going to work? And Ernst just kind of looked at the reporter, goes, yeah, but I want to win now too. And as a fan, we're like, oh my God, I love this guy. And then from the hits that he's made with guys from the third division Germany and just everything. And as a Sons of Ben member, he comes to our tailgates to do a toast before games if we invite him. So it's just things like that. Like you don't get Howie Roseman, coming to an Eagles tailgate to hang out with the fans before a playoff game, but we get that with Ernst Tanner. So it's thank you again and again and again for bringing Ernst into our life.
Yeah, no,
But you did you
he's exceptional, and of course, like anything, it takes a team. So one
yeah
guy may knock the ball in the net, but you've got the Chris Albrights, you got Jimmy Curtins, you got a lot of folks that are involved on that technical side who are helping to shape what you're seeing today. And I think, I know there was a time where Jim, went through a rough spell with a lot of fans, and we always had faith and belief in him. Yeah, he's a very knowledgeable guy. He's a good coach that also has that same passion for learning that you want to see in your players. You want players that are hungry to improve and get better. And Jimmy has gotten better and better and better. And I think there's no question in my mind he's one of the best coaches in MLS. And so you combine Ernst's sort of intensity and with what you've got in the rest of the technical group there. I think you got a really, really positive environment that is continuing to push the thing forward. And then the best thing I can tell anyone that's involved with the club is that no one's complacent, no one's happy with what we got. Everyone's sort of like, we need more, we need more, we need to do it better. And that kind of like tough attitude is what I think the city of Philly wants and deserves, kind of like you said. So I think there's a real desire to continue to push this thing even harder, make it even better.
yeah. And I think as fans we see that I mean we've always felt it with Jim just because he's always been out with the fans, even during the bad times. He'd sit down and talk with everyone, which you're like, whoa, if I was in your position, I'd be hunkered down in my basement waiting for the season to start again. But he's never hidden from it, so we've always appreciated that. Same with Chris. They've all been great to us. I want to get a little bit because we're talking about the future of soccer in the United States and North America. And again, I apologize for an open-ended question, but can you give us a little insight into? I mean, you've started Four Soccer Ventures as well as the Soccer Collective, which we had Jason Davis on our pod talking about him bringing back the best soccer show through the Soccer Collective, and then I guess you got Mark McKenzie doing a podcast through that too. So I just wanted to give everybody some insight into all the work that you and John and everybody else are doing.
Yeah, well, we have a great team at Four Soccer Ventures, and basically the way I'm looking at it is I believe that this decade is probably one of the most important decades in American soccer, right? We got the World Cup 2026, we've got the Olympics in 2028, and there's this incredible opportunity to sort of move what I always call sort of the relevance meter of the sport, how do we increase the sort of the passion for the game and for the American game specifically? And so I launched Four Soccer Ventures to invest in opportunities really in two areas. One, what I would call sort of the product. So the product to me is anything that's touching the field, anything that's touching player development. So that could be, the work we're doing with the Philadelphia Union is in that space where you think about the product is, imagine if if the United States produced the Michael Jordan of soccer, if it is an American kid from Dallas, from Philly, from wherever he is, right? What that
Hopefully
would,
not Dallas.
yeah, exactly. What that would do to the American, soccer consumer, having a super, I'm talking about someone who's in the top 1, 2, or 3 of the sport. That would definitely move the relevance factor. The people that are sort of sitting on the fringes of the sport right now would probably buy into it. So Four Soccer Ventures is looking for opportunities that can help drive what I would call the product side of the game. But the other approach is more on the media, culture, and brand space, and that's where Jason and some of the other things that we're doing. How do you make soccer more hip, more relevant, and more cool? I think we can look at the NBA and sort of how they've done some really interesting things in crossing over, the intersection between footwear, fashion, music, culture, There's a lot of cool things that are happening across the United States and in Canada, North America, in different communities as they think and consume soccer. And so For Soccer Ventures has set up essentially a creative agency that's working in that space to help brands connect with those consumers. So we've got a lot of exciting projects on that side as well. So it's sort of a dual-pronged approach, but it's headed towards the same thing. How do you drive the sport in this country? How do you make it more relevant? And so it's been really fun. Orange Slices with Mark is also with Heath Pierce, former national team player. And so those guys are doing that together. They're going to launch that, soon here. It's really about sort of these different generations of the game, like Heath's generation and Mark's generation, and sort of like the talking about sort of where the game is going, sort of their experiences and their network of friends, right? So Mark and his young sort of peer group that are coming up through MLS now, and the challenges they're facing, and the issues they're facing as young players coming up through the game, and then that are really sort of leveraging off of what was built before them, right? With that older cast of guys and Heath and his network of players and people, and so how you have sort of the old and the new in some ways, and we can talk about sort of how the game is moving and progressing in the country, and that's kind of what they're going to talk about. But yeah, For Soccer Ventures is really the sort of, for me, is the North Star with everything For Soccer Ventures is doing, is about sort of how do we move American soccer forward. And really we want to have Philadelphia Union be at the spear tip of that in a lot of ways, because I believe that we can be not only competitive on the field, but we can become the Ajax, if you will, of North America. We can be known as, one of the leading producers of talent. That when people around the world think about North American soccer, they say Philadelphia Union, and that means something. And I think we have the talent pool here. I mean, and we're only beginning to scratch the surface. And MLS is, I'm really excited with the MLS Next program. I don't know if you saw that, guys, with the launch by Garber and stuff, but there's a big commitment from the league as well. And look, the league wouldn't be making that commitment unless they saw promise in it. And I think, we've been working on that for a number of years at Philadelphia Union, and people have always maybe criticized about how do we spend, or how we spend, but we just spend in a different way. And we think, honestly, a smarter way.
I'm excited for that venture because, and Adam, you were there and you can comment on this. One of my favorite things last year was you guys had a academy tournament against Red Bull. And it was anything from the 13s to the 18s, I think, at the practice fields. And Adam and I were there just watching that, and it was a blast the entire time. So I can't wait to see the MLS Next round robin tournaments, just to watch that.
Yeah, and the coolest thing about that MLS Next, is that it's super inclusive, right? Like, they're not just doing it and saying, hey, let's go solve this, the development thing for just the 24 MLS youth academies. They really opened up and made it inclusive, and they've invited in all these amateur clubs as well to be a part of that. And literally, they're collaborating in sort of how that is going to be designed. And I think that's so smart. And it's because, look, MLS can't get there on its own. It's like you need those local youth clubs that are also producing talent, because as you all know, like, kids develop at different times and different paces, and we need to provide them that avenue where they can enjoy the game and play. And you're going to have some surprises. You're going to have some late bloomers that come in that maybe didn't make the quote unquote Union or Red Bull team at 14, but could be the best player in your region at 19. So that, I love the inclusive nature of the way MLS has gone out and tried to, take a new chapter to the developmental academy.
Now, and we were talking about this earlier, and you mentioned on the fact that you wanted the Union to basically become the Ajax of North America. And like I mentioned that last podcast, where I thought if the Union get to wherever it needs to get to in terms of their bells, like in terms of their pinnacle, that's what we would become. We'd become basically a manufacturing wing of North American soccer, where we're producing talent after talent through the academy, through a high school system, where as a person who went to boarding school, I've seen something similar to this where you've seen the nutritional people come in, you've seen the recruitment happen, you've seen people come in and take a little more of a seriousness towards high school athletics than your average, something that I think, again, it's modeling off of the European model and something that I feel eventually should be a lot of how we treat a lot of American sports, because I feel like that's a much more simpler model than going through our education system. But that's another conversation for another day. But what I truly appreciate is when you're talking about the macro of developing U.S. soccer and basically making it so that when we talk about all the time, we're a saturated country. We got like 80 sports to look at in any given day. So why would people choose soccer over this, that, and the other? And when you're trying to figure out, how to tap into those markets, one of the things I've loved the Union did was they tapped into suburban Philadelphia very well, very early. They connected with the main line, they connected with suburban New Jersey, they connected with northern Delaware, all the way even down to Maryland. But the thing that I always found interesting was actual Philadelphia, I felt was kind of left out a little bit when it came to the Union truly trying to market themselves and advertise themselves. They started with the games in the link, but then you don't see as many in-city advertisements as you think. And there's not as many random appearances in the city as, I think maybe. We do Dave and Buster's occasionally, but it was kind of still, there wasn't a lot of center city stuff. I spoke with this with other members of the FO and everything, but it was just like, what is the effort now to incorporate, truly urban Philadelphia into the fray now in terms of getting, those guys into the academies, more people from Philadelphia, PA in the academy, as well as Bear, Delaware, as well as Medford, New Jersey, and all the others.
Yeah, so there's a couple things in there. One is sort of the idea of, where are our players coming from? And we have a whole scouting department that's focused at the youth ages, and that there are kids that are definitely coming from Philadelphia, and I can tell you that for sure. There's kids in the school that are so there is representation as it relates to sort of our youth teams and sort of this competitive side. On the marketing side, I and sort of how you connect in a deeper way with the city. I know there's focus on that. I don't have all the details. I know that there's some challenges. Obviously, you've got a facility that's down in Chester, and it'd be great if we could pick that thing up and land it in the middle of the city. Imagine if you could do that with the stadium. But we're so there's a little bit of a disconnect between Chester and the city of Philadelphia just because of the location. So that means we have to work extra hard as an organization to figure out ways to sort of tap into that. I know that Tim McDermott and the guys in the front office are sort of focused on that. But I can tell you from a soccer standpoint, we definitely have coverage in these areas. Now, can we do better? Can we go deeper into these communities and find kids that aren't necessarily even playing on your travel soccer? Yes, and we're looking at that. We have a program we're affiliated with, the SWAG. We have the program that Dave Pettikin's running with the Philadelphia Union Youth. The SWAG is focused on African American youth and inner city youth soccer programs. Philadelphia Union Youth is doing all kinds of programming at the kind of grassroots level. So we're beginning to dive deeper in there, and I think we all of us in American soccer need to do another better job of getting into some of those communities. But and for the most part, our scouts are in there in those communities and finding those kids, and they're getting opportunities, and they're getting educational opportunities and soccer opportunities. So it's been a pretty a good part for us.
And a quick follow-up. I'm just when you see situations like Chicago, where they go from Bridgeview and now they're back in Chicago, and you see kind of how MLS 2.0, 1.0 had a lot of out-of-city stadiums, and now they're trying to build within the city boundaries. Do you see the Union leaning towards something like that, and not maybe building a stadium downtown, but like in terms of your marketing effort, do you see that there is an urban push back in MLS where for a while it seemed like it was a very outskirts kind of situation for MLS for a while?
I think, there's at the MLS level, I think, there's probably is some validity to the idea that, inner city, the stadium in the city is preferred over the stadium that's out. But at the Philadelphia Union standpoint, I think the vision is really to create a campus down in the Chester area between the Wharf building, which is an amazing structure. You've got the Annex, which is the first team's training complex. We got a really cool campus in the making, and so there's a vision there that is to create something that's very exciting, and that's a long-term vision. But I believe that could that's the answer for us probably in Philadelphia. It's more of a longer-term build, but it's I can tell you we're not necessarily looking to pick up and find a way to get into the city right now.
Yeah. I would riot if the Unions went back to playing at Lincoln Financial Field because I can't stand seeing MLS teams playing in football stadiums. I love being in soccer-specific stadiums, and I think all you need to do to bring Philadelphia down to Chester is just tell the Sixers you can build the arena down on the complex, and SEPTA will just provide the railroad anyhow. They're looking for a waterfront arena. You've got waterfront space. I'm just saying, call Josh up and say, hey, we got a parking lot for you to sell, and just put that arena down there, and the city will start following on down.
I like the way you're thinking.
And I won't even give you a consulting fee for you.
I like the way you're thinking. Yeah.
Last thought on the Soccer Collective. I know you were mentioning about Orange Slices with Mark and Heath. If you guys are looking for another podcast with an old guy and two younger guys, just let us know. We've got the whole old guy grumpy, young guy positive thing down pat. We've been doing it for 30 plus episodes, so just let us know.
That's great.
Devin, we'll get into a little quick Sons of Ben news and then get into Richie's thoughts on the games. All right, I'll run through this. Quick shout out to our boy Max Halperin, who's by the time Devin records this, or edits this, he'll be recovering from surgery in good old Cooper University Hospital. So, Max, get well soon, man.
Shouts to the boy.
Beer naming news. I don't know if you know this, Richie, but this year the Sons of Ben Ale is going to be made by 2SP out of Aston, Pennsylvania. So it's going to be brewed and ready to go in mid-October. So we are opening up to our members to name the beer. So we'll send something out through the email about where or who's going to get these emails, but we're going to take about 5 suggestions for whatever you want to name the beer. And then the board will pick 5, and then we'll have you guys vote on it. So you get a chance to name the beer, and if you're picked, we're going to let you and the people at 2SP agree to this. I don't know why. Help brew the beer. So we'll get some word out to that.
That seems dangerous.
Well, that's why, listen, we learned from San Diego. That's why you've got to give your suggestions to the board, and we can avoid a Footy McFootface beer.
Look.
We'll filter it, and then we'll give you. We're not complete fools.
I'm just making sure there got to be some overhead here. I'm a little concerned. That's all.
So we've got a game this Saturday. New England. 2 things happening at the Larimer. Our friend Katie Fellinger is going to be doing a book signing before the viewing party. And then if you want to join the Sons of Pandemic, the Sons of Ben and the Philadelphia Fandemic crew, we're going to be outside the stadium banging drums, hitting air horns, calling the refs all kinds of names, whatever we can do. So we will be at the Larimer as well as outside the stadium. So, get there. It's a 7 or 7:30 game. 7:30, right, guys?
7:30.
Yeah. It feels like it changes all the time. So
it really does. No, we'll be the first sustainable chants at the stadium since either the Vicente Padilla Flotilla or the Wolfpack. Now, either one of those lovely rendition of groupages. Those are the original supporters groups of Philadelphia, right there. I do remember those as my youth.
True. They really are. Little MLS news is the only news we really want to talk about is I think we played this team in New Jersey, Devin. Is that correct?
It depends on who you ask, but to us it's New Jersey. Yes.
Yeah. So I think, did I get this right? 3-0? Did I get my prediction right? Do I win a prize, Devin?
Hey, if you're in the Discord, you win a prize. So.
Yeah. So
you have to hop on the Discord, my friend.
Our notes for Richie is it looks like Brendan upped his value some more. Bedoya did Alejandro Bedoya things, And I thought Andrew Wooten actually did everything he was supposed to do except actually score. But I thought he actually had a good game for, what he when he came in for what he was doing. So just wanted to get your idea of what we thought was a great win. Something that we wanted to see for a while was the floodgates opening on this offense. So just wanted to get your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I always enjoy when we beat Red Bull. I used to joke about kids coming into the YSC facility and say you can wear any MLS kit in here, but don't walk in here with a Red Bull jersey. So no, I mean, look, it was a great team performance. I was really especially pleased with the second goal. I mean, obviously, Brennan's goal was fantastic, and you're right. He's been working really hard on his finishing. He has goals in him. I've seen him since he was a young kid. I know he's got goals in him, and he'll develop that part of the game. And the incredible thing about Brennan is his work ethic and his drive to want to become better is fantastic.
Well, that goal looked like he was a Norwegian center back. That thing was a rocket.
Yeah, it was a great shot, and I have to tell you, you almost got one-upped by his little brother against Tampa. I don't know if you guys saw that, a couple inches lower, and I think everybody would have been talking about Paxton's goal. But listen, great. I love that second goal because of the sort of the team nature of it, and everyone that was involved. It was the third goal was fantastic too, to see two homegrowns coming in. Fontana makes a great sort of pass out to Matt, then presses, right? Wins it back. Ilsinho slides it through, and Matt finishes. So those are, I think it was a good team performance. Maybe we didn't start out as well as we wanted to, but you know what? On the road, all this travel, everything that's going on with the pandemic, this is not as easy for these guys. And you look at sort of those young guys, and that's great, but let's not forget the Bedoyas. Let's not forget the guys that are there that are helping to not only develop those younger players, but are sort of making massive contributions day in and day out on the pitch. So it was a real team effort, and I'm really excited about sort of what Jimmy has created, the environment he's created, and that group of guys. So I was definitely happy to see that result, especially against Red Bull.
Yeah, and this team is that perfect blend of youth and veteran, where it's so rare to see. Some teams are rebuilding and they're all youth, or teams are buying and they're all older guys. And this team is that perfect group where you've got like guys like Colin there, that's just a mentor to so many, and then you've got guys like Sergio who are right in the middle of their career, and then you've got the young kids, coming up. So this has been fantastic to watch. I just wish we were there live to see this, but hopefully we can figure that out later on down the road.
A game like that. Yeah. I was gonna say a game like that against Red Bull it has to be like the YSC's like advertisement. It's just like, by the way, with that, all of that, 90% of that was us. Like most of these goals you see were brought to you by the following. It's just like, so like that's
first Union game in history with 2 goals from homegrowns. So.
And like all the homegrowns participated in it too. It was like everyone who was a homegrown on the field was like, no, we made substantial contributions to today's game. That's all we did.
I think Tommy needs a new tagline. Instead of a dupe in the old onion bag, it's like another score brought to you by YSC Academy.
That's great. No, I think, let's not forget Mark McKenzie too. He's been incredible, and he's done, and I mean, you watch him and you see his development and how he's getting better and better in training every week, and better on the pitch. And but again, I'm biased. Like, I want to just focus on those YSC Academy guys because I've known them since they were so young. I remember seeing those little guys walking into the facility the first time. So I have a special place in my heart for those guys. But I don't want to forget the contributions of guys like Ray Gaddis, right? And like what he brings to the team, and his leadership, and just, again, work ethic. I mean, and again, Bedoya, I mean, that guy is he rolls up his sleeves every day in training. He brings it, and he brings it when he competes. You look at guys like Martinez, some of the new guys that are coming in that sort of are, you just have a group that really is pushing themselves in the right direction. And again, that comes back to culture. And we can talk about methodology and we can talk about the player development and the young stuff, but like culture is something that is really, really important. And I think Jim has a really keen sense for that, and he creates an environment where he allows good, positive things to happen on a cultural front. And those are the things that maybe people don't see day in and day out. But if you're down at the training pitch, you know what I'm talking about. Like that's a special thing. So I hope these guys can keep it going, and they shouldn't fear anyone. I was in LA, by the way, for that LAFC game, and I was with a bunch of people, and they were in shock. You know, I was sitting there watching the game with Kobe Jones, and it was like, you know, people were in shock out there. They just couldn't believe it. You know,
Alexi Lala said the same thing. Says he was out with some of the guys, you know, before, and he was like, everyone was like, "Holy, what just happened there?"
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned I was down at the practice facility today doing some stuff in our lot, and who's in a golf cart all together but Ali Bedoya, Martinez, and Elsinho. And Bedoya's driving because I guess he's the captain. Elsinho's in the passenger seat, and El Brujo is just making siren noises out the back, and they're having the best time leaving the practice facility to go back to the annex. So it's just like, man, everybody just likes each other. It's just great to be around this team. So yeah, we're thrilled with everything that they're doing this season.
And they're not afraid of it. They're not afraid of anyone. That's what I love too. It's just like, you know what, you want to, you know, we're going to come punch you in the face. It's got like a Philly element to it, which is like, we don't care who you are or how, you know, what people say about you. We want to come after you. And that sort of the style that we're implementing, this sort of high press, industrial, sort of like we're in your face, it kind of fits the city a little bit. So it's like, it's kind of a natural, it's a natural thing. So it's exciting to see that. So I'm really excited to watch the New England game coming up. So
cannot wait. Devin, we just got a little bit of news left, right? So and Richie, I don't know, is this fair to ask you? Do you have a horse you bet on for the Premier League? Do you have a squad that you prefer over others?
My kids are big Arsenal fans.
Oh, you're killing all of us.
And I'll tell you why.
Why?
Well, you know, do you guys remember that Thierry Henry commercial when he was dribbling through the apartment?
Yeah.
Years ago, that was like one of the classic Nike, you know, just incredible.
Yeah.
My kids saw that and they were like sold, you know. And I took them to Highbury when they were little, and they you know, they just fell in love with it. And so they're Arsenal guys. I'm not necessarily. I don't pick one team over the other. I just, you know, want to see some good soccer. I've got friends that are at Man City, but that are involved coaching there. But you know, I just want to see good games. I don't have one club that I support. The only club that I really support is the Philadelphia Union. So, you know.
Yeah,
it's fair.
So before the Union, both Adam and I are Chelsea fans. And then poor Devin over here is a Tottenham fan. So we were just, you know, Devin basically beat me up for not watching Tottenham All or Nothing. So I had to do some homework and watch this on Amazon.
Oh, you watched that?
Oh, man, I tell you what, NFL Films has a formula, and they can do it with any sport. They could make the Cleveland Indians look like a good team. Like you've got faith in the Browns all of a sudden.
Man.
Like it is crazy.
As long as they bring back Willie Mays Hayes, they will be fine. Don't you worry.
So, Devin, for you gave me a homework. Here's my book report. I've got 3 thoughts.
Right.
How does Son speak clearer English than Harry Kane? Does Harry Kane eat a thing of mashed potatoes before he gets interviewed? Like, Harry Kane needed subtitles, Son didn't. Like, how is that? Like, I was sitting there going, come on, man. Like,
that is the premier accent of Spurs.
That is the Queen's.
He sounded like the
It's
Godfather.
the Queen's English.
Oh my! No,
it is the Queen's
not.
English. It is
that
the
was
BBC's.
North London English. We all got to go to Belgrade. After seeing that game in Belgrade,
no, we're don't.
We're doing a road trip. Yes, we do.
No, we don't.
Oh yeah, we're going to Belgrade. That looked like a blast.
I've seen Red Star Belgrade. I don't think I walk out of there. I don't know. That place gives me look. That looks fun from afar. I'll watch it on a helicopter. I don't need to see that.
That was insane. I was like, "Ooh, road trip, maybe not." But and then Devin, my last question for you, because I watched 3 of the episodes. After watching these episodes, did Tottenham win the Premiership last year? Richie, if you haven't seen this thing, it looks like they won since Jose Mourinho got there. that was it. They did nothing but win. I was like, I had to go back and like look online for the results because Amazon did a great job on
It was funny.
presenting
It was
that.
funny because they kind of hit home with the season they did this in, because this half of the season where he got hired, it's almost like you forgot about it. It feels like it was like 2 seasons ago, the first half of the Premier League season. So I'm watching it back, and it's like, did they actually play this good? When did this
the answer
happen?
was no.
And then like I'm watching some of the games, and it's like I don't even remember the results. So it's like, oh, they won that one?
No.
Oh, they won that one too? Like, what happened? And then I can't wait. I do not want to get to the second half of the season.
No, it's like,
And watch
what
the-
is it? It was like it's like the last half of any movie where you already know the ending of it. You're just like, all right, can I just stop here? Like, no one
Yeah.
needs to see the following. Like, I'm good. Like, I've seen Anakin get his legs cut off enough. I don't need to watch this anymore. I'm good. This is the end of my viewing experience here. No, but I'm very happy because this also brings the Premier League and soccer to a nice little audience in America who are just going to randomly stumble upon this and think it's Green Street Hooligans and then actually put it on and be like, oh no, I'm drastically disappointed. But as a former believer in Jose Mourinho, just enjoy. That's just so fun. It's just so fun watching his twilight years be done in North London. That's fun.
I don't know. I actually watch it, and after watching it, I think I said it last week, but it's actually turned me around on him a little bit and seeing a little bit of behind the scenes.
When you
called-
see it, Adam, you're gonna fall in love with him again.
That's
Yeah,
called
Adam, come on,
Stockholm
you gotta-
syndrome, my boy. That's good. He can't hurt you anymore. The season's over. It's okay. You can breathe.
Man,
You
his
can breathe.
dog died in episode 4, and he still went in to lead that team for a victory.
Look,
It was
man,
it's good theater.
because he's a mercenary. Because that man is a bona fide soccer mercenary Blackwater Corporation. That is what Jose
He's your
Mourinho
future
is.
coach for Inter Miami. I'm telling you now. Just mark it down in 4 years.
Look, as long as it's when Christian Pulisic comes back to be captain of the Union, I'm fine with it. That's all.
That's,
I'm here
that's
for
my
it.
last question for Richie before we wrap this all up.
You know
Richie,
what that's called? A segue.
that's a segue. Is Christian Pulisic the one that got away?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I think if we would have had our academy set up, a couple of years earlier, I think we would have had him in our system. But he was such a talent that he probably always would have leapt over. But we didn't have the environment in place for Christian. I mean, he was at PA Classic. Steve Klein is a really top level coach, a great sort of developmental academy program that's now in the new MLS league. I think we just didn't have the environment, and who knows? Like if we would have had the school and all those other pieces, up and going and sort of in the way it is today, I think he probably would have come in at a younger age and been in our academy. But I'm just so excited for American soccer to see him doing well, and there's so many guys that are sort of starting to make that leap over. It's really, really exciting. So. I do want to say something to you guys, though. Before I go, I do want to say how much it actually means to have you guys do what you're doing, to sort of the energy that you bring, not only for the game, but, for the Philadelphia Union, just the energy in the stadium. It really, really does matter. And it really, I can't tell you how many folks that I've had come and visit from across the pond, so to speak, that come and watch a Union game. And they're like, wow, this is an environment. And I think that you guys should feel really proud about sort of the history. You brought this team to this city, the energy that you bring. It really is magic, and you probably don't get thanked enough. But at the end of the day, I honestly feel that this is who we're working for. For you guys to sort of the fans of the game are ultimately sort of who you work for when you're in a professional sports organization. So I do want to sincerely say that I really, really appreciate and thank, and I know the other owners do, and I know the staff do, and I know the players do, because it does provide a special environment. And so I hope it, when we do get back in that stadium, I can't wait. I think we're all going to be excited, and I can't wait to see that energy unleashed on our poor opponents. But it really helps.
When you have guests next time, let us know. Bring them in. We'll get them up on a stand with Adam, let them bang the drum, let them really feel it. They don't just have to sit it from afar. Just contact us and we'll have them come in for even just a little bit to get a taste of it. And I wanted to tell you, we do have a 10-year plan for you. It involves Christian Pulisic coming back in 10 years to captain the Philadelphia Union while he's leading what we're calling the El Seno 12-year-olds, the U12s that went down to Brazil to crush. We figure by then they're all 22 years old, and Christian Pulisic's going to lead them, and we're just going to go on a tear in the MLS. So that's our final 10-year plan for you.
I like that vision. I think there's some real magic players in that '08 group there for sure. And there's some, we got fun things coming, believe me.
It gives me great pleasure to say that there is something brewing in Wayne, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, there is. Richie, thanks so much again for one, being the founder of the Academy and bringing us these jewels, and two, being a guest on the pod and joining us. So thanks a lot, and hopefully we'll see you in the river end soon.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You as well.